Hi, this is Dr. Rodier, Professor of Philosophy and Coordinator of Philosophy 252. I'm here to talk about Unit 9. Unit 9 has 3 chapters from the Dayton Rodier book, chapters 15, 18, and 19. And I just want to start with the chapter 15 kind of overview, which is coming out of the book. And this kind of shows how some of these fallacies get going, which is by violating a relevance condition. So you have two people that are having a dialogue. Let's say they're engaged in a back and forth around dialectical acceptability. And then C here enters the dialogue and starts talking about things that aren't relevant to these claims. So attacking the motivations, discussing A's past actions, or just being abusive and name-calling. And your unit map here goes over these different forms of ad hominem. When you look at a fallacy of emotional bias, and what they're doing is they're redirecting away from that dialectical acceptability and bringing us into just bad reasons for belief. So mob appeal is when we kind of pull on your heartstrings and try to get you thinking like, it's not exactly groupthink, but it really is sort of saying, you want to be part of our group, right? This is what we think. And so group membership or being like each other is not by itself a reason for believing in certain kinds of claims, the claims that we might want to use as premises. I included here two wrongs make a right. So this is kind of saying, if someone is saying you shouldn't do A because, and the person distracts by saying, well, you would do it if you were me. But that's not a reason one way or the other, right? That's actually also pointing to a kind of hypothetical action, whereas tu quoque points towards a person's past actions. Two wrongs make a right kind of says, well, this might have been something you would do. So it's very weak, like all of these fallacies. Then when we look at, they're slightly different, the emotional appeals, and I think it's important to get it right between what's an ad hominem and what's an appeal to emotions. So appeal to emotion is, it could be pointing to anything. It could be bringing up all kinds of different things. But what it's trying to do is to get you to believe on the basis of a feeling. So, with pity, it's not providing reasonable, rational, relevant grounds for belief. It's just sort of saying, you should feel this kind of way, and this feeling should move you to believe. And that's not the kind of rational ground that we're looking for. And force or fear is more blatant in a way. It kind of says, believe this or else, right? And what you want to do when you're picking out these fallacies is not just identifying them, but saying what the issue is and what would be better, right? So you want to try to think about what's going wrong, why, loop it back to that something is not rational grounds and why, and talk about justification between premises and conclusions and what really provides support. And then you want to say, you could say, well, what would be better? This unit map covers chapters 18 and 19, even though it has evading the facts in the middle. Basically, what we have here are all of the overview or bullet points of each one of these fallacies that you want to keep in mind. Now, there's a chapter after, I believe it's chapter 21, that is a kind of fallacy roundup, and that is like there to help you with definitions and explanations. But this is kind of just to make sure you have it all in front of you, kind of in one grasp. So when it comes to our arguments that we might be looking for fallacies in, we want to look, are they using generalizations? And are those generalizations appropriate to the thing that they're generalizing about, right? Every generalization has boundary conditions or spaces in which it does not apply. So they need to be sensitive to non-typical cases. So I like this little diagram here, and there's diagrams in the textbook as well. Basically what you have is a sweeping generalization takes a rule and it sweeps over a special case where it doesn't apply. A hasty generalization takes a special case that's like a non-representative case and tries to build a rule out of that. So we want to, like for example, the hasty generalization one that always comes up for me is there are rare occasions where people who are in car accidents, the seatbelt actually leads to more injury. But overall, they protect and save lives. And so you can imagine someone saying, well, there was an accident where someone's seatbelt actually harmed them, so seatbelts are bad. Or I'm not going to wear them, or whatever it is. Okay, and then going back to even like early in the course where we talked about disjunctive syllogism, where we have two, like an or, an either or, that's an exclusive or. What we have, which means that either one or the other is true, and not both. But then in categorical logic, we talked about contraries and contradictory statements. So bifurcation is this fallacy where an arguer will represent something as an exclusive either or to try to force you to choose. And there's actually more options, and it's a sort of technique of it's a technique where you're presuming that you've represented all of the options. Now, sometimes people confuse that one with force or fear because it is kind of, do this or something, but we really need to look at what that or is. Is that or saying you either choose freedom or security or something like that? Yeah. Okay, so does the arguer in the argument misrepresent the views of others? So we talked in the textbook about the principle of charity and representing people's views fairly. A straw person argument, that's where in the course of arguing for your position, you represent the person that you disagree with in a very weak way, and then refuting that weak version is taken to be evidence for your point of view or your claim, which really you don't achieve very much when you argue against a straw person. And what you do is you open yourself up to even more criticism. And so it doesn't establish anything. It doesn't actually provide grounds. Special pleading. Okay, so now we're getting into these fallacies here, which are more about the justification relationship. So when we have special pleading, in a way, what we're saying is we're using loaded language, but in a very specific way. So it's an undermining way. So I'm saying when you speak, it's complaining, but I am simply informing. So that itself is taken to be a kind of undermining of the other person's point of view. So, if you're a complainer, then you don't have to listen, I guess. So watch out for double standards. Complex question. There's a lot of discussion in the textbook about what makes a good question and how to form questions that are pursuing the truth of the claim that is actually at issue. And a complex question kind of bakes in what you should be trying to establish instead of doing the work of establishing it. So in this case, the claim under scrutiny is baked into the question, and that's kind of unfair. It violates one of the basic rules of justification, which is there needs to be it needs to withstand scrutiny, and there needs to be an sort of independent justification for each one of these claims. Question begging. Let's start up here with just begging the question. So assuming some claim is proven when it's not. This is, I would sort of say here, assuming what you're trying to prove. So look for repetition, but also look for claims that are just without justification, that are just brought in without any kind of justification. You go, well, where you've just assumed something without proving it. And that's what I think of as begging the question. And question begging epithets. This basically begs the question, but by using loaded language. So there is a little bit of overlap here with special pleading, but special pleading, you're really looking for that double standard. And what I'm going to suggest for wrapping up Unit 9 is that you make sure you're doing all of the exercises. That's where you really get that practice. Look through the explanations, the answer key, do your quizzes, and you would have practiced on your second assignment and, soon, and getting ready for your final project. So, do your exercises and the reading, and there are study questions in your unit, of course.